بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So tonight, as promised, we're going to begin discussing some of the inner dimensions of Hajj, some of the virtues as well as manners, as of course Hajj is around the corner. And if you haven't already made the journey, then at some point, inshallah, you will. And some of the information here, I think, will be quite helpful to make the best of the journey. So just a brief introduction. This is a continuation of what we were doing in Ramadan during I'tikaf. We were going through this particular textbook called Mukhtasar Minhaj al-Qasidin, which is an abbreviated book by Ibn Qudamah, abbreviated the book Minhaj al-Qasidin, which was written by Ibn al-Jawzi. And Ibn al-Jawzi actually took a great deal, or if you will, revised the book by Imam al-Ghazali called Ihya Ulumuddin, which is a very famous book. Perhaps you're familiar with at least the titles or the name of Imam al-Ghazali. So basically this is a condensed version of that, just gives you exactly what you need in very, very clear language. So he begins and he says, the opening of this chapter, he says that a person that wants to make Hajj, they should begin by making tawbah first. They should repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to purify their heart from any sin and transgression. And then they should return anything that does not rightfully belong to them. Restore any rights of someone else, whether they be seemingly insignificant or something major. You should restore any rights of those that you may have perhaps oppressed in the past in some way. And then you should pay off all of your debt. You should pay off all of the debts, in particular those that are being called upon. Right? So here there's a difference between, the long-term debts that we have on our shoulders, we may be paying on for 15, 20 years, versus an immediate debt or an installment of a long-term debt. So those things need to be paid off before you make Hajj. And then what you need to do is prepare enough money to spend on everyone you're required to take care of, from the time you leave until the time that you return. Right? So if you're going to make Hajj and you're responsible for other people, whether you have a family, extended relatives, or someone that you've kind of taken on, then you need to make sure you have sufficient spending money to take care of them in your absence. And then you should return any money that's been given to you to hold on to for safekeeping. So if someone has entrusted you with something, whether that be money or a type of property, then before you make Hajj, you want to make sure that you return this. In the instance that you yourself do not return, that obligation of yours is not pending. After that, you should bring along with you some money for your trip. Halal money is preferred here, so you do want to filter out the type of money that you bring. And you're going to bring enough that is sufficient to cover your journey going and your returning journey as well, without being overly stingy with your spending. So while you are underway and traveling, you want to be able to afford decent transportation. And you also want to be generous with people along the way. So if you run into people that are in need or impoverished, the needy, and you should bring with you some money to give, to spend for sadaqah, and you should also be generous when it comes to paying for services rendered. Okay? You should also bring with you things that you're going to need for the trip. Personal things like siwak or a toothbrush, your your comb or your brush, your mirror, to make sure that you are keeping up appearances. And he says al-makhala, which is the kuhl, the medicinal, it's traditionally made from a compound known as stibnite, which is kind of like a black charcoaly substance that many of us are familiar with. Kuhl they put in the eye for medicinal purposes, and that was traditionally done in the evening time, that they would put it on their eyes, not in the eye of course, but yes, yeah. So then you would wear that in the nighttime, and it would help with any eye problems that you may have. So these types of personal things you should make sure that you bring along with you. Very practical advice that the great scholars of the past would also give. You should give charity before you leave. Right? Begin your journey on a positive note with an act of righteousness. Give some charity before you leave. And you should also when it comes to your transportation and when it comes to carrying all of your luggage, you need to be forthright with what it is that you're bringing. And traditionally, the people were traveling in caravan. They were not, of course, with modern transportation, plane, train, and automobile. You have to be forthright with that. If you're taking a plane, they're going to weigh your baggage. If you're taking a cab, they're going to see your luggage. But back then, you're going to hire a camel driver who's going to have a caravan of camels, and you're going to ride on one of the camels, and then you're going to bring along with you your belongings. You need to be forthright with how much you have. And you should obviously be honest so that you can compensate them fairly, and also the wear and tear on the animals, or in this case, the transport, is accounted for. So that's another thing, for example, like traveling from one city to the next. You go and hail a taxi cab, and you're negotiating the price, but you've told everybody to wait inside so that the cab driver doesn't see you've got 3 other people and there's 10 bags. He's got to strap some to the roof, and then you end up negotiating a price which would be unfair for the actual load. So you have to be forthright when it comes to these types of issues. One of the great imams of the past, his name was Ibn al-Mubarak, rahimahullah. He passed away in 181 from the Hijrah calendar. He was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa. He was requested one time to take something and deliver it. To take someone from someone and deliver it. And he refused the request, saying he had to seek permission from the camel driver, or in our instance, the taxi driver or the bus driver or whatever it may be. So that was the way of the pious from the early generations. Next thing is talking about your travel party. It's extremely important that you travel in the company of righteous people, those that love righteousness and good deeds, and that will help you and support you when it comes to performance of righteousness along the journey. And in the instance that you forget about what it is that you're doing, they will remind you, meaning that you're on a journey of righteousness. You're not on the journey for sightseeing and gift buying and whatever other things may come along. They'll be there to remind you of what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And of course, at moments of difficulty, because Hajj is filled with difficult moments, they will be there to encourage you to be patient and to be forbearant in those times of difficulty. When you're traveling in a group, which most of us are these days, it's from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to appoint a group leader, to appoint an Amir, and that is for 3 people or more. So if your group consists of 3 or more, then the best and the most gentle of your group should be selected as the leader. Okay? So you want to find someone who is the best manner and also the most easygoing, not negligent or lax, but he can deal with stressful situations, and he also knows how to handle dealing with various types of people. The last thing you want is to put somebody in charge that is a hothead, because that'll just make the trip miserable. Okay, because the leader has a number of important roles that he has to see to. So the leader is needed, of course, because in a group of travelers, everyone has their own opinion, and sometimes the opinions, they don't mesh, they don't come together, and so you're stuck. And so the Amir is there to make the final decision, and everyone should essentially follow that. So regardless of how organized the trip may be, without the leader, the organization, it will not be a reality. So the leader of the group, or the Amir, has to be gentle with his travel party, and he has to always consider what's best for the group. What's best for the group, not what's best for himself or his friend or his wife or his child, but what is best for the group, and make the decisions based on that. And then he has to make himself a shield or a barrier for everyone. And so if there is any hardship that he can prevent from afflicting them, that he prevents it. And so this would be like in modern times when you run into a checkpoint and you have to present your passport and you have to go through documentation. And so the Amir, what he'll do is he will facilitate that for everyone. He'll take your passports, he'll take your documentation, he'll allow you to rest on the bus or in the car, and then he'll go and handle those, those types of necessary protocols while you're underway. Or if something went wrong with your airline ticket, or you're waiting too long, or you needed a hotel, or some arrangements have to be made, the group leader is there to kind of be a buffer for that hardship. If it can prevent it, he will absorb that. And so obviously it needs to be someone that is patient, that is forbearant, and that is easygoing when it comes to difficult situations. The traveler should be mindful of their speech, only saying things which are good and righteous. They should feed people along the way, be generous with their food. They should also display the best of manners. Travel has a way of bringing out what is inside. Travel brings out what the reality of your actual demeanor is, right? It's easy to be well-mannered when things are going smooth. Things are going your way. You can keep it cool. It's all going the way I want. But while traveling, which is a burden, right? It's a difficulty. You lose sleep. Your diet gets messed up. You're not comfortable. You're riding for long hours. You're out of your comfort zone. So that is when there's an annoyance, there's a hardship, and what actually is inside will come out. And so you have to try and adhere to the best manners possible. So it was said that whoever has good manners while traveling has even better manners while a resident. Okay? And so if someone praises you, or someone that has dealt with you while you are a resident, they praised you, and then your travel buddies also praised you for having good character, etc., then there's no doubt that this person is righteous. This person is of good heart and of good spirit. Right? So if you get compliments from the people that you work with locally, and then you find that people compliment you while you are traveling, it's a good sign. Or if you're inquiring about someone, you ask, do you know this person? Well, I dealt with them locally for business. And then you ask someone that's traveled with them, they also have nothing but good words to say, then there's no doubt that the person's probably a good person, or she. Before you leave, you need to bid farewell to your family members and loved ones, your brothers, sisters, close relatives. You need to be mindful of making dua for them. You should be consistent in making dua for your family members that you leave behind. You should leave, it's preferred that you leave Thursday morning. This is the preferred time of travel. That you should pray rak'atain before you leave the home, and make the farewell supplications to your family regarding their safety and security and that of your wealth. You should always remember and use the ad'iyah, the dua, and the adhkar, the remembrances that have been reported by the Prophet ﷺ when you leave the house, when you get in the car, or when you get on the plane, when you get off, when you disembark. There's a lot of available supplications in the books of Hajj or Umrah or the books of fiqh. And now they even have books of dua that contain nothing but that. So while you are making Hajj, it's important that that be one of your companions. You have that book with you in your pocket, or you have an app with you on your phone that you can spend a lot of your time making these du'as regardless of the various different scenarios. Also, during the rites of Hajj, there are numerous du'as that you should be making, and that reference material will come in handy. It will be an invaluable resource during your trip. And so the Imam Ibn Qudamah, he says, that you should definitely look for these supplications in those books, right? So you don't want to ignore this. You're going to have a couple of things with you when you travel. We talked about your personal items, and you're going to want to make sure you have a book that you can refer to make supplications, to make the adhkar, etc.